with another DIY tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the knit button cuff, and this will be using needles, not arm knitting. A lot of people have requested this video and I'm finally getting to making it for you guys. I'm sorry it took so long. So here's what you're going to need for making the button cuff. You'll need Lion Brand yarn, Woolies Thick and Quick, or any similar yarn. This is a super bulky yarn and it comes with 108 yards, so you can get quite a few button cuffs out of just this one ball of yarn. And this is in the color linen. You will also need knitting needles. These are the ones that I use. I bought these years ago at Walmart. They are number 13 knitting needles. That's the size. I will provide links down below if you guys want to purchase these items online. And you'll also need a button. And when you buy a button, try to find a button with large enough holes to fit a yarn needle through. So as you can see, this button has pretty large holes, and you can get these at Walmart, or I'll provide a link for you down below. You can also get them at buttonlovers.com. Also, you'll need a yarn needle, and depending on the size of the holes in your button, it's gonna tell you what size yarn needle you need. You can get a package with multiple sizes, or you can just buy one. For this button, I have to use the smallest yarn needle that comes in the package. Okay, and you'll also need a measuring tape. Any type of measuring tape will work, and a pair of scissors. So let's go ahead and get started. What you're going to do is pull this strand out there. And I like to pull my yarn from the center of the ball. That way it's not, the ball isn't rolling all around. Sometimes it's hard to find just the end of the strand, so I have to pull out that big clump, and there's the end. So now we have our yarn, and what we're going to do now is the long tail cast on method. I find that this way of casting on is more secure. It just looks better. It's not as loose. So to do this, you're going to need about, I say about 10 inches or a foot of tail. Okay, and now you're going to make your slip knot. So you're going to pinch these two together, put your pointer and thumb finger in there, twist and grab that working yarn and pull it through. And now you're going to take one of your needles, put it through there, and tighten it up. So you have two strands here. You have your tail of yarn, and you have what we call the working yarn, which is the one attached to the ball of yarn. So now you want to begin casting on using the long tail cast on method. So to hold the yarn properly, and that is my dog Remy in the background if you hear any noises, you're going to take the working yarn, the one attached to the ball of yarn, put it in between your pointer and your middle finger. Okay, hold it in place with your ring and pinky finger, and then you're going to take the tail and wrap it around your thumb, just like that. Okay, hopefully that makes sense for you guys. And now you're going to take the needle, you're going to go under this strand here, over the one in the back, under it, and through there. And tighten that up, but not too tight. And while still holding the yarn like that, you're going to cast on your third stitch. The slip knot did count as your first stitch, so now you have two. And we're going to cast on a total of 8 stitches. So go under that strand, over the one in the back, and then through there, under and through. There's 3. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to actually knit the button cuff. You want to take your second needle in your right hand. You're going to put it under and through that first stitch there. See how it's going through the back just like that. And then you're going to take your working yarn, wrap it around the back and then the front of that right hand needle. And then you're going to push it through like that. And then pull it off or slip it off of that left needle. So now you have your first stitch on your right needle, and we'll do that again. Put your right needle under that first stitch there, so it's going through the back. Take your working yarn, wrap it around, and then push your needle down and then to the front, and then slide it off of that left needle. Tighten it up. And the next one, through to the back, wrap your yarn around, and down into the front, and then slide it off just like that. And again, the needle through, wrap the yarn around, slide it off. And you're going to do this to all 8 stitches. So now you have your first row on your right needle. Now what you're going to do is turn this around, switch it to your left hand. Okay, and make sure that your yarn isn't, twisted around like that. Make sure it's in the front here, so this loop is in the front like that. To knit the second row, it's going to be a little bit different than the first because we're doing the purl stitch. So you're going to do the regular stitch on the first row, second row you're going to do the purl stitch, and you're going to do that throughout the whole button cuff. So here's how you do the second row. Make sure your yarn is in the front and not in the back like it was with the first row. So move it to the front. You're going to take your right needle and you're going to stick it through and down like that, across the front this time. And then you're going to take your working yarn and wrap it around the back into the front of that front needle. Now you're going to slide your needle through to the back like that, and then slide that off of the left needle, and now it's on the right one, and you want to tighten that up. And let me show you that again. Make sure your working yarn is still in the front. Okay, and now you're going to take your right needle, put it through like that, wrap your working yarn around the front needle, and then push that needle to the back so it looks like that, and then slide it off. Do that to the entire row, all 8 stitches. So there's the third one. It's really hard knitting this close to a camera and this close to the table. My needles keep hitting everything. Okay, that was the second row. Now on the third row, this is optional. I like to make a buttonhole in mine because I want my button cuff to be removable. I don't want to have to sew it onto my scarf. So to make a buttonhole, it's pretty simple. What you want to do is knit 2 stitches just like we did in the first row. So make sure your working yarn is in the back this time. So you're going to take your right needle, stick it through that first stitch, wrap your yarn around and do it just like we did in the first row. Tighten that up. 2 stitches. Now that we have our 2 stitches done on a third row, you want to take that working yarn and move it to the front. So now the working yarn is in the front of the work. You're going to slip 1 stitch, which means that you're going to stick the needle in through that stitch purlwise, just like you did on the second row, and you're going to slide it right off and onto your right needle. And then you're going to take that working yarn and move it back to the back side of the needle, in the back of the work. Okay, so now you have 3 stitches on your right needle and the working yarn is in the back of your work. Now what you're going to do is you're going to bind off 4 stitches because we want a 4-stitch buttonhole. So to bind off 4 stitches, you're going to again make sure your working yarn is in the back. You're going to take that right needle, slide that next stitch off, and you're going to take that next stitch on your right needle and pull it over that first stitch and off. And tighten that up a little bit. So there's 1. Slide the next one over and take that next stitch, slide it over, oops, over and off. Okay, tighten. And then again, slip a stitch and take that next stitch, slide it over the first one and off of the needle, and 1 more, and bind off that last one there. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is take this stitch here that's on the right needle and move it back over to the left one. So just take that left needle and stick it in there and slide it right off. So now you have 4 stitches, 2 on each needle. The next thing you want to do is turn your work around, okay? And when you turn your work around, it's going to move your working yarn into the front of your work. And so now you need to move that working yarn into the back, okay? The next thing you want to do is cast on 5 stitches. You want to cast on 1 more than you did with the bind off. So you're going to take your needle, your right needle, and you're going to put it in between those 2 stitches through to the back, just like that. So stick it through, take your working yarn, okay, wrap it around that stitch from the back to the front, pull that yarn through, just like that, and then you're going to slide it on to that stitch, and now you've made a 3rd stitch on your left needle. And we're going to do that again. That's 2. And don't do this too tight because then it's going to be really hard to stick your needle through. And that's 3. And that's 5. So now you should have 7 on your left needle. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, and 2 still on the right needle. Now we're going to turn our work again. Move that working yarn to the back. Now you have 2 on your left needle, 7 on your right, and we need to bind 1 off to make it 8 stitches again. So take that needle, the stitch on your left needle, the first one, and slide it over to your right needle. And then you're going to take that second stitch on your right needle and pull it over and off just like that. And that bound off that stitch. So now you want to tighten that little loop right there by pulling on your working yarn. And then just knit your last stitch, just like you knit the first two on this row when we started the row. Okay, and so now you have a buttonhole to fit the large button through. So turn your work. So we've turned our work again, and now we are going to do the regular stitch again. So this time, like we did in the first and third row, we're going to go through the back with the right needle. Working yarn is in the back. Wrap that around and push your needle down, slide it off, and again. Okay. And then you're going to want to turn your work again. And you're going to knit the purl stitch now. And you're going to go through the front. So move your working yarn to the front. Go through the front of the stitch. Wrap your yarn around. So if you're noticing a pattern now, we're doing the knit stitch and then the purl stitch. Knit stitch one row, purl stitch next row, and you're going to do that throughout the whole pattern. And the edges are going to curl on this, but once you sew the button on and close it up, and you can uncurl the edges and it'll stay uncurled and flat. Just keep knitting and keep knitting. Okay, so I just finished knitting all of my rows, and as you can see here, if you pull it straight, I have about 9 inches, exactly 9 inches. Okay, and it doesn't have to be perfect length, it can be a little less or a little bit more. So now what you want to do is bind off your work. So take your right needle, knit the first stitch, knit the second stitch, and then take the first one, pull it over and off. So now you have one stitch on your right needle. Knit the next stitch, and whoops, pull it over and off. Knit the next stitch, and pull it over and off, and do this all the way to the end of your row. Okay, so get rid of that one needle. Now you have one stitch here left on your right one, so pull that working yarn through. Cut it just a few inches away from your work. And then you're going to pull that tail there through so it secures it, and tighten it by pushing that down. And that's the end of your button cuff. Alright, so the next step is to weave in your ends. So you're going to grab your yarn needle, twist the very end of your yarn so it fits through. You have to like pinch it a little bit and put it through your yarn needle. Okay, and then you're going to find the edge of your project here, and you're just going to stick it under, over, under, over, under, and then pull it through all the way. Go ahead and cut that. And you shouldn't be able to notice from the front. And next one, this is the other end of the project. Way through until the edge is smooth. You want to kind of push that knot in there. And then leave that on your needle. This will save you a step. Cut that, and so you still have this piece of yarn here on your needle. So this is where you sew on the button. So unroll the edges, center your button on there, just like that. You're going to go through the back first and find the hole. Stick it through, and you might have to wiggle it a little bit because this yarn is so thick. Go through the back, and you could be done like that, but I like to go through twice just to keep it secure. So go through again. Okay. And now flip it over, tie a double knot, nice and tight, and weave in these ends. Okay, and then cut those off. And the edges do curl in a bit, so flatten them out. And then when you wrap your button cuff around your scarf, like this, and put the button through the hole, you can kind of go through and unravel the edges. Okay, and that's that. That's your button cuff. I hope you guys liked this tutorial. I know everybody was asking for it. I'm sorry it took me so long again. If you want to see more pictures of the scarves and the button cuffs, you can go to my blog, simplymaggie.com. I'll put a link down below. And that is it for now, guys. I really hope you liked this. If you have any questions, leave them below. And I will be back soon with more tutorials.